This is the Plagmanrules Podcast, and welcome to episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Never mind. So, this is the Plagmanrules Podcast. We're talking about movies. We're talking about whatnot, just whatever comes to mind. Mainly movies and TV and that entertainment type stuff. Today's Monday, and as we do, or try to do every Monday here, we'll take a look at the box office report, see what people are seeing, what people are not seeing. Okay, so it was Father's Day weekend. We had a pretty good result for Cars 3. That came in first place, $53.5 million, at least by the estimates here. That's a pretty good result, I think, for him. I mean, especially since the first Cars movie and the second Cars movie, not some of the more fondly remembered ones for a lot of the Pixar fans. I don't mind the first Cars. I didn't see the second one, but this third one, I'm just gonna skip it. But anyways, 53.5. That's a pretty good result. I know the first one made 60 million. The second one made 66 million. So that makes this the lowest opening gross for any film in the franchise. But you know what? Since the movie series has kind of run out of gas, so to speak, har har har, this is actually not a bad result. Now, if say it had opened to 20 million, yeah, then we're talking that's a disaster of an opening there. We saw Wonder Woman held strong in second place, still at 40.7 million, only off 30% from last week. Yeah, that means that this movie is more than just your everyday comic book movie in that regard. It is just doing excellent business, and I think Father's Day weekend was actually a pretty prime weekend to see it. It's already been out a couple weeks. The word of mouth is very, very good on it. Since it's a good movie, I'm finally rooting for the movie to do well, because every other DC movie that has come out here, I've been kind of rooting against making money just because I don't like it. But since this one is making money, good, because it's a good movie. All right, in third place, we had All Eyes on Me. That came in at 27 million, which just about doubled what I was expecting it to. I put it at 16 million on a blog post I put up. I'm on movieblogger.com as Plagman Rules. Every week I do box office predictions on Thursday and try to predict what comes in at the top 5 of the box office charts. And then I also do a kind of retrospective because I do it every week. So I come back the next week and say how I did the previous week. And I put All Eyes on Me at 16 million in fourth place. And I had Rough Night up there way higher than what it got. That really surprised me. And I said in the blog post there, I said, maybe we should be expecting a higher number here, because back in 2015 when Straight Outta Compton came out, that movie was pegged to open at like 20, 25, maybe 30 million. And it doubled that and made 60 million opening weekend. I went to see it that Saturday or Sunday, and I remember everybody around me who was on the theater staff at that time said, yeah, that movie actually sold out last night. And that was something I don't hear very often. So for 27 million on a movie like this, I know it's budgeted at like 45 million, close to that. It's going to make its money back for sure, as long as it holds strong. I know there's been some statements coming out from like 50 Cent and Jada Pinkett Smith, and they're denouncing the movie, saying don't go see it, it's not true. And it affected them personally, to the fact where 50 Cent was calling it bullshit and trash and all that. You know what? After it's done so well, I'm actually going to go and see it. I'll see it sometime. I might be able to see it today, or sometime in the next couple of weeks here. Same with The Mummy. That came in fourth place, down 56% from last week, coming in at 13.9 million. Now, after its less than stellar performance last week, I would say, yeah, anything higher than 60% would have been a total disaster for Universal. But 56%, it's not the worst thing in the world. I think domestically, if it gets less than 95 million, which at this point looks pretty likely, actually, that's going to be a little bit of a disappointment for Universal. But as of right now, worldwide, it's getting close to $300 million. Now, if you factor in that the movie with its marketing costs is costing closer to like $200 million, that means they have broken even, they have made money on it. So maybe with all those negative critical reviews and some less than great reviews from the people who went to see it, maybe then the Universal Dark Universe isn't in as much trouble as we thought it was. We had 47 Meters Down come in fifth place. This was kind of a surprise. I was thinking this was going to make like maybe 9 million tops or something close to that. Made 11.5 million, good enough for fifth place. And it beat out Rough Night, which I had in like third place. I had that one getting like 17 or 18 million. I was much higher on that one. It made less than half of that at 8 million opening weekend, down in seventh place. Pirates of the Caribbean did better than Rough Night did, which, it had big stars in it, like Scarlett Johansson, Kate McKinnon, Jillian Bell, Zoe Kravitz, to name a few. Not a great result. It only cost about $20 million to make, so that's, as long as it doesn't have a disastrous drop next weekend, then it should be all right. I know we've got Transformers coming out this Wednesday, which I'm totally skipping. Otherwise, I don't see too much coming out here that's going to really make it struggle at the box office, you know. Next weekend, we've got a lot of limited releases coming out, like The Big Sick and The Beguiled. There might be some potential that it's only going to fall, say, like 30% maybe next weekend, because not a whole lot of other competition is going to be out there for the movie. But still, 8 million, less than half of what I expected, and tracking had it at 22 million. So that's roughly, almost 2/3 less than what they were predicting it for. Wow, that's not good for Sony, who released the film there. And yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, this is another sign of an actor or an actress in the MCU who really can't open their own movies anymore. And Scarlett Johansson already had a rough time earlier this year with Ghost in the Shell, which disappointed when it opened in March. Now she's like Chris Evans. He had his independent projects, which didn't open very well. And then Chris Hemsworth, I think, is the biggest stinker of all, though, with like In the Heart of the Sea being a huge flop for Warner Brothers. Black Hat was a gigantic flop for Universal. Yeah, so it's just another sign that maybe some of these Marvel actors should extend their contracts because their names aren't as big as their characters are. Anyway, so yeah, we've got Transformers coming out on Wednesday. Yeah, I'm skipping it. I have no interest in these films anymore. I mean, I saw the first one, and it was kind of fun. It's not a perfect movie. It's kind of, a guilty pleasure type movie. I couldn't even finish the second film. I gave it a try, but I waited to see it on DVD, got about like an hour into it, and then I shut it off. I'm like, I can't watch this anymore. It was just so bad. And I didn't even try on 3 and 4, but yeah, I'm not gonna pain myself to go see that. Anyway, so yeah, we'll see how that does. I'm just getting the sense that the franchise is looking at a really big upset here pretty soon. Like, I think audiences are catching on because each film, at least here in the States, has been earning less and less and less with each sequel to Transformers since the second one. And now, if this fifth one again disappoints in that way, I think we're going to start to see some changes coming. And we've already got a few changes, like the Bumblebee movie is coming out next year. That's got a different director. Going to be set in the past, we're now learning. So yeah, so that maybe that could get some steam going on this, because for me personally, I'm not into these huge monster movies or big robot movies like Pacific Rim I didn't see. I'm not the core audience for it, but there's a potential for this. And, it's a big franchise, of course, from the 80s cartoon and toy line and everything. This could be, a billion-dollar franchise that can also be good films, but they're not doing it right now. And nothing from the previews or anything has told me this fifth one's going to be any different. But yeah, maybe if this one doesn't make as much money, and then the Bumblebee movie comes out next year and it's actually decent, and it makes money, then maybe they'll learn. Until then, we've got little to no hope on that one. Okay, not a whole lot is happening here movie-wise, so there's one more thing I wanted to talk about here. We'll try to spend a little more time on this today, and that's the stuff that's going on with Sony Pictures with their upcoming standalone Venom movie. Well, last week Kevin Feige kind of came out and said, nah, this Venom movie is not really going to be part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. No, it's going to be its own thing over at Sony. And the contract is still going on that makes Spider-Man a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So at this time, what we know, just to kind of catch you up if you're not familiar with this, Tom Holland as Spider-Man is in 6 movies with his current contract. 2 of those are standalone Spider-Man movies, the Spider-Man Homecoming, which comes out in a few weeks, and a sequel to that one, which right now it's titled as Spider-Man Homecoming 2. They're probably going to change that here in the next few months and give us a little bit of an update on that. But he also appeared in Captain America Civil War, so that's 3 knocked out. And he'll also be appearing in Avengers Infinity War, and reportedly in the second Avengers follow-up to that, which would be Avengers 4. So there's 5 movies knocked out. With that, he said this, I think it was a couple weeks ago now, that a third movie that's a standalone of Spider-Man would fulfill his contract. If you believe that, then Spider-Man's not going to appear in any more movies with the Marvel proper after that 4th Avengers film in 2019. So that means that he's going to have that standalone movie in like 2020 or 2021 or something like that. But the thing is, the whole reason that Spider-Man's a part of the Marvel Universe is because of this deal that was inked between Sony and Marvel. And that deal comes to an end in 2019 after the release of this second standalone Spider-Man movie. So, there's kind of been this question, are they going to renew the deal? You know what? With all the success that happened from Civil War, with Spider-Man being one of the audience's favorite characters, and I really like their interpretation of it in Civil War myself, I'm pretty confident that they're going to figure out a way to continue this. But there's always that chance that it doesn't happen. So that would mean if that does happen, if they say, nope, that's the end of it, that means Spider-Man is not coming back for any Avengers sequels after the fourth one. He's not going to make any side appearances like he did in Civil War, which means that that third film is going to be by Sony and not Marvel. No input at all from Marvel on that. And also this Venom movie, now Kevin Feige says Venom is not going to have any direct repercussions on the Marvel Universe. But now Amy Pascal is coming out and saying, well, yeah, that's true, but Venom is going to be in the same universe as Spider-Man Homecoming, which technically is part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So what? That's kind of confusing, but if I'm reading this right, and it's being interpreted right by everybody who's making up all these reports, then basically how this works out is the Tom Holland Peter Parker can show up in the Venom movie, and they're also trying to make this Black Cat and Silver Sable movie as well. He can show up in those. Those characters, Venom, Silver Sable, and Black Cat, are not necessarily going to be showing up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That is kind of a confusing way to do it. Now, I haven't made this point yet, but here's my thoughts, on whether or not they should do a standalone Venom movie and Silver Sable and Black Cat and all that. Back in 2014, when they came out with Amazing Spider-Man 2, which a lot of people hated, I actually liked it. I mean, I'm not going to say it was the best movie ever or anything, but there's more. I'll say it this way: there's more memorable parts of Amazing Spider-Man 2 than Amazing Spider-Man 1. But their plan was, okay, we're going to do these two movies, and then we're going to do two sequels to this, plus we're going to have a Sinister Six movie, plus more potential spin-offs down the line. And Sony was in way over their head. And just the backlash from everybody not liking Amazing Spider-Man 2 as well as they thought they would really caused all those rifts and all those all that stuff to happen, and that's what eventually led to the third reboot of the Spider-Man character and the Civil War crossover. But basically, yeah, they were going to do like a Sinister Six movie and another movie with Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 4 and all this other stuff. And that stuff actually sounded interesting to me. And I remember when they did announce that everything that was going to happen with Civil War, with Spider-Man coming in, I was kind of disappointed because I was like, sometimes with these movies and these movie studios, I kind of get morbidly curious. I'm kind of like, you know what? You guys have dug yourself into such a hole like what they did with Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm like, I want to see how they get their way out of it. Unfortunately, they had to make another deal to get their way out of it. I would have been interested to see what a Sinister Six movie would have been like. I would have been interested to see what happened to Spider-Man after everything that happened with Gwen Stacy's death. That's, I think, part of the reason why I was kind of upset with them doing that Civil War crossover thing, was because I wanted to see what would happen later. So now that's all in the past. That's all scrapped. That's never going to happen. And now we've got Venom and Silver Sable and Black Cat. You know what? Personally, Sony, yeah, they need to pump the brakes here because they want Venom out by next year. They want Silver Sable and Black Cat probably out in the next couple of years. They need to pump the brakes, okay? Spider-Man Homecoming is not even out yet, and they're going to probably start shooting on Venom here in the next couple of months, maybe by the end of the summer, with Tom Hardy, who I think is a good choice if they're going to do it. But I just say pump the brakes here. Let's see what happens with Homecoming, because right now, the movie has a lot of steam going for it. Box office analysts are saying it could open to up to $108 million here domestically opening weekend, which I think is a spectacular number. I'd say anything above $80 million for Spider-Man is a good number. Anything below that is probably not great. But still, one thing that kind of concerns me, and this is something you can kind of look out for yourself, is when does the movie get its MPAA rating? Because when the movie gets rated by the MPAA, that means that they've got picture lock. In other words, that means the movie is done. Maybe not 100% done. Like maybe they're still working on some special effects. Maybe they're still doing this and that, but everything else is done. Like they know what's in, what's out. That's when they screen it to the MPAA. So, for example, we just got word of the first screenings from the War for the Planet of the Apes, and the MPAA actually just rated it earlier in the week. And then by Friday, or technically by Thursday, they had the screenings ready. So, that's kind of your give and take there. Right now, Spider-Man Homecoming does not have a rating, which means they're still not comfortable enough to show it. Maybe they actually have shown it just recently and they haven't updated it yet. Because I check Box Office Mojo for that, by the way, if you want to check when the ratings go up. Like another example of that, Wonder Woman was rated like at the beginning of May, came out in the first weekend of June, which means, yeah, they had just about everything done by the end of May, which, yeah, was a pretty good sign there. So, yeah, the earlier it comes out, the better, is mostly what I'm saying here. That's a good sign of whether or not they're really, really good on the project, like they're ready for it or not, is when does that rating come out? Because if the rating comes out like the week before release, it's kind of a cluster. But if, say, it comes out a month or earlier, then yeah, that means, yeah, that they were ahead of schedule or on schedule and they had everything, they had all their ducks lined up and in a row. So right now, that looks like that is not the case with Spider-Man Homecoming, which for me doesn't mean it's going to suck, doesn't mean it's in bad shape. Maybe, they're just taking a couple last second twinges here and there. For the moment here, I'm expecting Homecoming to still be a pretty solid movie. And nothing in the previews has shown me that it's not going to be at least a decent movie, so that's good. But still, with this Venom and Silver Sable and Black Cat stuff, I mean, Venom, there's still a bad taste in people's mouth from the Spider-Man 3 version of Venom. And I mean Spider-Man 3 like the Tobey Maguire one. Because, yeah, personally, that was my first experience with the Venom character. And I was like, why is this one of the most popular villains? Because this guy sucks. I think there's still some animosity toward that film and toward the interpretation of the character. So getting Tom Hardy on board is a good sign and a good step forward. Still, I say pump the brakes on this and just kind of give it a little bit of time before you start doing your own movies again, like they were trying to do with Amazing Spider-Man 3, 4, Sinister 6, trying to get all these plans together, because that's kind of what this is turning into here. I'm just really nervous about all that. So if Spider-Man Homecoming is not a great movie, doesn't do well, then yeah, that's a bad sign that Sony really got too anxious. We'll see what happens. Spider-Man Homecoming doesn't come out for a couple more weeks, so I'm sure we'll get the MPAA rating here very shortly. And then pretty soon after that, we'll get our first screening alerts from the movie pundits and from critics and stuff. They might even get reviews in before the end of the month. So yeah, we'll see what happens here. In the meantime here, kind of interesting, all these reports of Spider-Man as played by Tom Holland. He'll be able to appear in Venom, but then Venom and those characters won't be able to come over to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which, personally, I'm not too upset at that, because we've already got how many hundreds of characters, or at least I'm using hyperbole here, but how many hundreds of characters are in the Marvel Universe right now? It's just it's almost like a too much factor. So to add Venom and Silver Sable and Black Cat, and potentially we could have like Kraven and all these other Spider-Man villains who we haven't seen yet into the Marvel Universe, it might just become too much. So, you know what? Maybe it might work out for the best, but we're just going to have to wait and see. All right, that's all I got for you guys this time. We'll be back again on Friday, and we'll take a look at what else is happening this week in movie news and in entertainment news. If anything else major drops, we'll be covering that on Friday's show. A couple of housekeeping things before we go. If you would like to bring up an idea or a discussion point that you would like brought up on the show, you can leave a comment here on YouTube. Otherwise, I have a Gmail account set up, and that's plagmanrulespodcast@gmail.com, and that's PLAGMANRULES podcast@gmail.com. You can bring any discussion points there. Ideas or suggestions for the podcast are welcome there as well. And that's about it for right now. We'll be back again Friday talking about what else is new in movie news, entertainment news, and just in general. That'll do it for this edition. This has been the Plagman Rules Podcast.